Sultan, Sultan, Arabic, sultan, Sultan, pronounced as alt-a and salt-a, and is a position with several historical meanings. Originally, it was an Arabic abstract noun meaning strength, authority, rulership, derived from the verbal noun sultan, sultan, meaning authority or power. Later, it came to be used as the title of certain rulers who claimed almost full sovereignty in practical terms, i.e., the lack of dependence on any higher ruler, albeit without claiming the overall caliphate, or to refer to a powerful governor of a province within the caliphate. The adjective form of the word is sultanic, and the dynasty and lands ruled by a sultan are referred to as a sultanate, a sultan, at sultanah. The term is distinct from king and malik, despite both referring to a sovereign ruler. The use of sultan is restricted to Muslim countries, where the title carries religious significance, contrasting the more secular king, which is used in both Muslim and non-Muslim countries. In recent years, sultan has been gradually replaced by king by contemporary hereditary rulers who wish to emphasize their secular authority under the rule of law. A notable example is Morocco, whose monarch changed his title from sultan to king in 1957. History of the term. The word derives from the Arabic and Semitic root salata, to be hard, strong. The noun sultan initially designated a kind of moral authority or spiritual power as opposed to political power, and it is used in this sense several times in the Quran. In the early Muslim world, ultimate power and authority was theoretically held by the caliph, who was considered the leader of the caliphate. The increasing political fragmentation of the Muslim world after the 8th century, however, challenged this consensus. Local governors with administrative authority held the title of amir, traditionally translated as commander or prince, and were appointed by the caliph, but in the 9th century some of these became de facto independent rulers who founded their own dynasties, such as the Aghlabids and Tulunids. Towards the late 10th century, the term sultan begins to be used to denote an individual ruler with practically sovereign authority, although the early evolution of the term is complicated and difficult to establish. The first major figure to clearly grant himself this title was the Ghaznavid ruler Mahmud r. 998–1030 c., who controlled an empire over present-day Afghanistan and the surrounding region. Soon after, the great Seljuks adopted this title after defeating the Ghaznavid Empire and taking control of an even larger territory which included Baghdad, the capital of the Abbasid caliphs. The early Seljuk leader Tughril Bey was the first leader to adopt the epithet sultan on his coinage. While the Seljuks acknowledged the caliphs in Baghdad formally as the universal leader of the Muslim community, their own political power clearly overshadowed the latter. This led to various Muslim scholars, notably al-Juwayni and al-Ghazali, attempting to develop theoretical justifications for the political authority of the Seljuk sultans within the framework of the formal supreme authority. In general, the theories maintained that all legitimate authority derived from the caliph, but that it was delegated to sovereign rulers whom the caliph recognized. Al-Ghazali, for example, argued that while the caliph was the guarantor of Islamic law Sharia, coercive power was required to enforce the law in practice, and the leader who exercised that power directly was the sultan. The position of sultan continued to grow in importance during the period of the Crusades, when leaders who held the title of sultan, such as Salah ad-Din and the Ayyubid dynasty, led the confrontation against the Crusader states in the Levant. Views about the office of the sultan further developed during the crisis that followed the destruction of Baghdad by the Mongols in 1258, which eliminated the remnants of Abbasid political power. Thenceforth, the surviving descendants of the Abbasid caliphs lived in Cairo under the protection of the Mamluks and were still nominally recognized by the latter. However, from this time on they effectively had no authority and were not universally recognized across the Sunni Muslim world. As protectors of the line of the Abbasid caliphs, the Mamluks recognized themselves as sultans, and the Muslim scholar Khalil al-Zahiri argued that only they could hold that title. Nonetheless, in practice, many Muslim rulers of this period were now using the title as well. Mongol rulers who had since converted to Islam and other Turkish rulers were among those who did so. The position of sultan and caliph began to blend together in the 16th century when the Ottoman Empire conquered the Mamluk Empire and became the indisputable leading Sunni Muslim power across most of the Middle East, North Africa, and Eastern Europe. The 16th century Ottoman scholar and jurist Ebisod Mehmet Efendi recognized the Ottoman Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent at the time as the caliph and universal leader of all Muslims. This conflation of sultan and caliph became more clearly emphasized in the 19th century during the Ottoman Empire's territorial decline, when Ottoman authorities sought to cast the sultan as the leader of the entire Muslim community in the face of European Christian colonial expansion. As part of this narrative, it was claimed that when Sultan Selim I captured Cairo in 1517, the last descendant of the Abbasids in Cairo formally passed on the position of caliph to him. This combination thus elevated the sultan's religious or spiritual authority in addition to his formal political authority. During this later period, the title of sultan was still used outside the Ottoman Empire as well, as with the examples of the Somali aristocrats, Malay nobles, and the sultans of Morocco, such as the Umayyad dynasty founded in the 17th century. It was, however, not used as a sovereign title by Shia Muslim rulers. The Safavid dynasty of Iran, who controlled the largest Shia Muslim state of this era, mainly used the Persian title Shah, a tradition which continued under subsequent dynasties. The term sultan, by contrast, was mainly given to provincial governors within their realm. Feminine forms. As a feminine form of sultan, used by Westerners is sultana or sultanah, and this title has been used legally for some, not all, Muslim women monarchs and sultans' mothers and chief consorts. However, Turkish and Ottoman Turkish also uses sultan for imperial lady, as Turkish grammar, which is influenced by Persian grammar, uses the same words for both women and men. However, this styling misconstrues the roles of wives of sultans. In a similar usage, the wife of a German field marshal might be styled Frau Feldmarschall. Similarly, in French, constructions of the type Madame la Marechale were historically used for the wives of office holders. The female leaders in Muslim history are correctly known as sultanas. However, the wife of the sultan in the Sultanate of Sulu is styled as the penguin, while the sultan's chief wife, the queen consort in Brunei especially, is known as Raja Istri with the title of Pengur and annex suffixed, should the queen consort also be a royal princess. Compound ruler titles. These are generally secondary titles, either lofty poetry or with a message, e.g., e.g. Mani Sultan equals Mani Sultan, meaning the pearl of rulers or honored monarch, a subsidiary title, part of the full style of the Maharaja of Travancore. Sultan of Sultans, the sultanic equivalent of the style King of Kings. Certain secondary titles have a devout Islamic connotation, e.g., Sultan al-Mujahidin, as champion of jihad, to strive and to struggle in the name of Allah. Sultanic Highness, a rare, hybrid Western Islamic honorific style exclusively used by the son, daughter-in-law, and daughters of Sultan Hassan Kamal of Egypt, a British protectorate since 1914, who bore it with their primary titles of Prince Amir, Turkish, Prince or Princess, after 11 October 1917. They enjoyed these titles for life, even after the royal rescript regulating the styles and titles of the royal house following Egypt's independence in 1922, when the sons and daughters of the newly styled King Malik Misr, considered a promotion, were granted the title Sahibat of Sumo el-Malaki, or Royal Highness. Sultan ul-Qaum, a title meaning king of the nation, given to 18th century Sikh leader Jassa Singh Ahluwalia by his supporters. Former sultans and sultanates. Sultanates in Anatolia and Central Asia. Ghaznavid Empire, its ruler Mahmud of Ghazni, was the first Muslim sovereign to be known as sultan. Great Seljuk Empire, Sultanate of Rum, Ottoman Empire, Timurid Empire, Caucasus, Ilisu Sultanate, and a few others. A sultan ranked below a khan. Levant and Arabian Peninsula. In Syria, Ayyubid sultans, Mamluk sultans. In present-day Yemen, various small sultanates of the defunct Aden Protectorate and South Arabia. Othali, Fadli, Hoshabai, Kathiri, Lahej, Lower Aulaki, Lower Jaffa, Marakwati, Sabayi, Upper Aulaki, Upper Jaffa, and the Wahidi sultanates. In present-day Saudi Arabia, Arabia, sultans of Nejd, sultans of the Hejaz, Oman, Sultan of Oman, authentically referred to as Hami, on the southern coast of the Arabian Peninsula, still an independent sultanate, since 1744 assumed the formal title of Sultan in 1861. North Africa. In Algeria, Sultanate of Touggourt, sultans of Tlemcen. In Egypt, Ayyubid sultans, Mamluk sultans, sultans of the Mohammed Ali dynasty. In Morocco, until Mohammed V changed the style to Malik king on 14 August 1957, maintaining the subsidiary style Amir al-Mu'minin, commander of the faithful. In Sudan, Darfur, Dar al-Mazalit, Dar Kimmer, Funj, Sultanate of Sinar, Kordofan. In Chad, Bagwimi, main native title Mbang. Wadi, main native title Kalak, successor state to Burgu. Darsila, actually a wandering group of tribes. Horn of Africa, Adjuran Sultanate in southern Somalia and eastern Ethiopia. Adal Sultanate in western Somaliland, southern Djibouti, and the Somali, Harari, and Afar regions of Ethiopia. Isaaq Sultanate in Somaliland and the Somali region of Ethiopia. Haber Yunis Sultanate in Somaliland and Somali region of Ethiopia. Majertine Sultanate, Majertinia in northern Somalia. Sultanate of the Geledi in southern Somalia. Sultanate of Asa in northeastern Ethiopia. Sultanate of Harar in eastern Ethiopia. Sultanate of Habio in central Somalia. Sultanate of Ifat in Somaliland, Djibouti, and eastern Ethiopia. Sultanate of Mogadishu in south-central Somalia. Sultanate of Shoa in central Ethiopia. Amal Sultanate in southeastern Somalia, centered in Kirkuk. Southeast Africa and Indian Ocean. Angach Sultanate on the Mozambican coast, also several neighboring sheikdoms. Various sultans on the Comoros. However, on the Comoros, the normally used styles were alternative native titles, including Mfalni, Fani or Jamb, and the hegemonic title Sultani Taib. The Mayor or Mawati Sultanate on Mayotte separated from the Comoros. Maliki, apparently derived from the Arabic Malik. This was the alternative native style of the sultans of the Kilwa Sultanate in Tanganyika, presently the continental part of Tanzania. Swahili Coast. Sultanate of Zanzibar, two incumbents from the Omani dynasty. Since the de facto separation from Oman in 1806, the last assumed the title Sultan in 1861 at the formal separation under British auspices. Since 1964 union with Tanganyika, part of Tanzania, Mfalme is the Kiswahili title of Very. In Kenya, Pate on part of Pate Island, capital also named Pate, in the Lamu archipelago. Wituland became a German, then British protectorate. In Tanganyika, presently part of Tanzania, of Hadamu, on the island of that name, also styled Gem. Sultani. This was the native ruler's title in the Tanzanian state of Uheb. West and Central Africa. In Cameroon, Amon Baman, 17th century, founded uniting 17 chieftaincies. 1918 becomes a sultanate, but in 1923 re-divided into the 17 original chieftaincies. Ibemi, founded in 1770, initially styled Lamido. Mandara Sultanate, since 1715, replacing Wandala Kingdom, 1902, part of Cameroon. Ray Bauba Sultanate, founded 1804, in the Central African Republic. Bangasu created c. 1878, 14 June 1890 under Congo Free State Protectorate, 1894 under French Protectorate, 1917 Sultanate suppressed by the French. Dar al-Quti French Protectorate since December 12, 1897, Rafi c. 1875. Sultanate 8 April 1892 under Congo Free State Protectorate, March 31, 1909 under French Protectorate, 1939 Sultanate suppressed. Zemio c. 1872 established, December 11, 1894 under Congo Free State Protectorate, April 12, 1909 under French Protectorate, 1923 Sultanate suppressed. In Niger, Arabic alternative title of the following autochthonous rulers: the Amenakal of the Air Confederation of Tuareg, the Sarkin Damagaram since the 1731 founding of the Sultanate of Damagaram Zinder. In Nigeria, most monarchies previously had native titles, but when most in the north converted to Islam, Muslim titles were adopted, such as Emir and sometimes Sultan. In Borno, alongside the native title Mai, since 1817 in Sokoto, the suzerain also styled Amir el-Mu'minin and Sarkin Musulmi of all full jihad states and premier traditional Muslim leader in the Sahel according to some once a caliph. Southern Asia. Balmani Sultanate, Balmani Shahs. Sultanate of Bengal, Ilyas Shahai Ganesha, Habshi Hussain Shahai, Mohammed Shah and Karanis. Sultanates of the Deccan, Adil Shahai of Bijapur, Farid Shahai of Bidar, Imad Shahai of Birar, Nizam Shahai of Ahmednagar, Qutb Shahai of Golconda, Sultanate of Delhi Mamluks, Khiljis, Tughlaqs, Sayyids and Lodis, Sultanate of Gujarat Muzaffarids, Sultanate of Jaunpur, Sharki dynasty, Sultanate of Khandesh, Faruqi dynasty, Sultanate of Malwa 3 dynasties, Sultanate of Madurai, Sultanate of Laccadive and Cananor, Arakkal Kingdom, Sultanate of Kashmir, Shamirids and Chaksks, Sultanate of Maldives. Southeast and East Asia. In Indonesia, formerly in the Dutch East Indies, on Kalimantan, Sultanate of Banjar, Sultanate of Birau, Sultanate of Bilungan, Sultanate of Gunung Tabur, Sultanate of Kubu, Kutai Kartanegara Sultanate, Sultanate of Mempawah, Sultanate of Pacer, Sultanate of Pontianak, Sultanate of Sambaliang, Sultanate of Sambas, on Sulawesi, Sultanate of Buton, Sultanate of Bone, Sultanate of Gawa, Sultanate of Luwu, Sultanate of Sepang, Sultanate of Wejok, on Java, Sultanate of Banten, Sultanate of Sayurban, the rulers in 3 of the 4 palaces, Kraton, from which divided Sayurban was ruled, Kraton Kaspuhan, Kraton Kanaman, and Kraton Kasarbonan. Only in Kraton Kaprabonan was the ruler's title Pain Bahan. Sultanate of Demak, Sultanate of Pajang, Sumedang Larang Sultanate. Sultanate of Mataram was divided into 2 kingdoms, the Sultanate of Yogyakarta and Sunanan Surakarta. Sultanate of Yogyakarta, the divine sultanate of which its ruler Sri Sultan Hamengkubuwono is considered a divine being, a half-god. Suganate of Surakarta Suzuhunan, a high-ranked monarch, equivalent to emperor. In the Maluku Islands, Sultanate of Ihasapayua, Sultanate of Hanamoa/Siri Sapayua, Sultanate of Huamule West Surim, Sultanate of Tanahitu Amban, Sultanate of Ternate, Sultanate of Tudor, Sultanate of Bakan, Sultanate of Jalalo, Sultanate of Loloda, later occupied by Ternate. In the Nusa Tenggara, Bima Sultanate on Sumbawa Island. In the Riau Archipelago, Sultanate of Lingga-Riau by secession in 1818 under the expelled Sultan of Johor, on Malay Sultan Abdul Rahman Muizzin Sia ibn el-Marhum Sultan Mahmud. In Sumatra, Aceh Sultanate full-style Sultan Berdalat Zilula Fil Alam, Sultanate of Asahan, Awak Sungai, established 17th century at the split in 4 of Minangkabau in 1816, extinguished by Netherlands East Indies colonial government. Sultanate of Delhi, Sultanate of Indragiri, Sultanate of Lankat previous style Raja, Palembang Sultanate Darussalam, also holding the higher title of Suzuhunan, Sultanate of Pagarayam, Sultanate of Perluak, Rayu Linga Sultanate, Samudra Pasa Sultanate, Sultanate of Serdang, Sultanate of Sayak in Malaysia. In peninsular Malaysia, where all 9 of the country's present sultanates are located. Sultanate of Perlis, Sultanate of Johor, Sultanate of Kedah, Sultanate of Kelantan, Sultanate of Pahang, Sultanate of Perak, Sultanate of Selangor, Sultanate of Terengganu. Furthermore, the ruler of Luak Jelebu, one of the constitutive states of the Negeri Sembilan Confederation, had the style Sultan in addition to his principal title Undang, Luak Jelebu. Sultanate of Malacca in Brunei, Sultan of Brunei, Brunei on Borneo Island in China. Dali Yunan, capital of the short-lived Panthay rebellion. Furthermore, the Kajami al-Muslim and leader of the community of Muslims of Pingin Guo pacified South State, a major Islamic rebellious polity in Western Yunnan province, is usually referred to in foreign sources as Sultan. Ili Sultanate in the Philippines, Sultanate of Buayan, Sultanate of Maguindanao, Sultanate of Sulu, Basilan, Palawan and Tawi Islands and part of eastern Sabah on North Borneo, Confederation of Sultanates in Lanao in Thailand, Sultanate of Patani, Sultanate of Singapore. Current sultans. Sultans of sovereign states. Sultan Hassan al-Bolkiah, Sultan and Yang di Pertuan of Nation of Brunei, the abode of peace. Sultan Haytham bin Tariq, Sultan of the Sultanate of Oman. Sultans in federal monarchies. Sultan Ibrahim Ismail, Sultan and Yang di Pertuan of Malaysian state of Johor, the abode of dignity, and its occupied territories. Sultan Salahuddin, Sultan and Yang di Pertuan of Malaysian state of Kedah, the abode of safety. Sultan Mohammed V. Al-Sultan and Yang di Pertuan of Malaysian state of Kelantan, the abode of bliss and its dependencies. Al-Sultan Abdullah Riyatuddin, Sultan and ruler of Malaysian state of Pahang, the abode of tranquility. Sultan Nazrin Shah, Sultan, Yang di Pertuan and the ruler of Malaysian state of Perak, the abode of grace and its dependencies. Sultan Sharifuddin Idris Shah, Sultan and Yang di Pertuan of Malaysian state of Selangor, the abode of sincerity. Sultan Mizan Zainal Abidin, Sultan and Yang di Pertuan of Malaysian state of Terengganu, the abode of faith. Sultan with power within republic. Sri Sultan Hamengkubuwono X, Sultan and Governor of Indonesian Special Region of Yogyakarta in some parts of the Middle East and North Africa. See List of current constituent Asian monarchs and List of current constituent African monarchs. Princely and aristocratic titles. By the beginning of the 16th century, the title Sultan was carried by both men and women of the Ottoman dynasty and was replacing other titles by which prominent members of the imperial family had been known, notably Khatan for women and Bey for men. This usage underlines the Ottoman conception of sovereign power as family prerogative. Western tradition knows the Ottoman ruler as Sultan, but Ottomans themselves used Padişah emperor or Hünkâr to refer to their ruler. The emperor's formal title consisted of Sultan together with Khan, for example, Sultan Süleyman Khan. In formal address, the Sultan's children were also entitled Sultan, with imperial princes Seyzade carrying the title before their given name, with imperial princesses carrying it after. Example: Seyzade Sultan Mahmud and Mihrimah Sultan, son and daughter of Sulayman the Magnificent. Like imperial princesses, living mother and main consort of reigning sultan also carried the title after their given names. For example, Hafsa Sultan, Sulayman's mother and first Velid Sultan, and Hurrem Sultan, Sulayman's chief consort and first hasty sultan. The evolving usage of this title reflected power shifts among imperial women especially between sultanate of women, as the position of main consort eroded over the course of 17th century. The main consort lost the title sultan, which replaced by kadın, a title related to the earlier khatun. Henceforth, the mother of the reigning sultan was the only person of non-imperial blood to carry the title sultan. In Kazakh Khanate, a sultan was a lord from the ruling dynasty, a direct descendant of Genghis Khan elected by clans, i.e. a kind of princes. The best of sultans was elected as Khan by people at Kurultai. See Kazakhsky Sultanity. Military rank. In a number of post-caliphal states under Mongol or Turkic rule, there was a feudal type of military hierarchy. These administrations were often decimal mainly in larger empires, using originally princely titles such as Khan, Malik, Amir as mere rank denominations. In the Persian Empire, the rank of sultan was roughly equivalent to that of a modern-day captain in the West, socially in the fifth rank class, styled Ali Jah.